Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Three Block Theater, and I think we all can agree that Justice League, not a good movie, right? Like, it's not a terrible movie, but it's mediocre, and that's not where you want to be when you're the Justice League, right? But there's been so many problems with the Justice League that we know that one of the biggest factors was the inclusion of Joss Whedon, and I want to kind of like really quickly, at least pseudo defend Joss here. I mean, he came into a project in 2017. They started filming the movie a year prior. He came in to do rewrites and then ultimately had to do reshoots, and his job was trying to recapture the tone of a Zack Snyder movie. You're never going to recapture the tone of a Zack Snyder movie unless you're Zack effing Snyder. So one of the reasons why hashtag release the Snyder Cut is as popular as it is, and Warner's should definitely listen. I feel like every week we get something new about the Snyder Cut, taking it away from being something that could be considered Bigfoot status to being something that's more like, no, it's real, but they're just not talking about it, like the aliens in Area 51. Anyway, Joss Whedon did the best he could do, and it wasn't enough. Warner's should have just pushed the movie until Snyder could finish it to complete his vision, and it wouldn't have fundamentally derailed the DCEU as we know it. But there's one new thing we're learning about it, especially when it comes to the crew cost of how things transpired. See, we only think about it from Zack Snyder's perspective, right? It was Snyder's vision. It ended up being taken away from him due to tragic circumstances. Never mind the fact that Warner Brothers undercut him at like every single turn. They undermined him. They took away confidence. They made people like fans think that he sucked. I mean, there was a lot there. There was a lot there that happened. And unfortunately, what we are dealing with now is the human cost of that, which is going to now be on the cinematographer. Now, apparently here, Zack Snyder's, the Justice League theatrical cut was so bad, it made Zack Snyder's cinematographer cry. And that's pretty bad, because the cinematographer is an art. It's an art. Directing is an art. Writing is an art. Producing can be considered an art if you're really good at it. Visual effects, audio editing, visual editing. This is an art-based business, and people put a lot of themselves in their work. Why? Because they love it. And so if you are being brought on a movie like Justice League and you are the cinematographer to Zack Snyder, you are putting out some good looking stuff. And if you go and you watch the intro to Justice League, it's very similar to the intro of Watchmen. Very good cinematography, very well put together. And of course, the rest of it's kind of ruined by Joss Whedon attempting to add jokes to the movie. Anyway, so Fabian Wagner, who is the cinematographer here, was not happy. He says in an interview with Comic Book Debate, as transcribed by, I love this here, by fried chicken website, comicbook.com. Seems about right. Wagner revealed that he had indeed seen the final cut of the movie, but it was hard to keep track of how much it changed because he was crying the whole way through, saying, I have, unfortunately, referring to seen it. It's really hard to say because I was watching it and I think I was crying all the way through. It's so hard for me to say exactly how much was changed, but a lot was changed. It looked very different. It's sad for me because I loved working with Zack at the best time of my life. There were many other things on that movie that made it so good, apart from the fact that I was working with Zack and the whole gang. I met my wife on that job. There were a lot of other changes, but it was just a great shoot. So it was a shame to see the film, it turned out to be the way it turned out to be. You can just see, if you've watched the trailers, you can see how the film should have looked and how the film did look when we were shooting it. And that's so true. That's so absolutely true. That this guy, if you go back and you watch the Comic-Con 2016 trailer for Batman v Super, for Justice League, they cut together the trailer following the release of the extended cut of Batman v Superman, and you could see what it was Snyder was going for. And that trailer got people hyped up. And then, of course, Warner Brothers was like, ooh, Batman v Superman didn't make as much money as it could have made, only 800 some odd million. Let's go back and reshoot. Let's retool it. Let's make it funny, because Age of Ultron and Civil War had done over $1 billion. Marvel's killing it with these movies. What are we doing wrong, everyone? What are we doing wrong? Well, what you're doing wrong is you're not listening to your filmmaker. You hire a person for a specific vision. You hire Zack Snyder, who did Watchmen, 300, Dawn of the Dead, a guy who's a very visually, visceral filmmaker. And you bring in Joss Whedon, who's known for Buffy and Firefly and Dollhouse. And you bring him in because you think, hey, he brought Avengers to $1 billion. He could do this. He could make this work. He couldn't, because the tone was never going to be the same. Robert Downey Jr. was able to kind of play Iron Man very, very, very smart-assedly, very smart act, very sarcastic. And Joss Whedon can write that kind of punchy dialogue. And he did. He brought it in. And there wasn't it wasn't a full tonal change. Keep in mind that Marvel had planned all this out ahead of time, and they had made sure that there was homogeny, right? There was a status quo for how these things are meant to look. Some people kind of look at it as being very bland, which they're not wrong in some instances. There's meant to be a continuity with these films. But you go and you look at the Zack Snyder directed DCEU movies, and there's very much a continuity in the way that it was shot, and the way that it was put together, and the way that it was edited, and the way that it came together in the end was very much a Zack Snyder joint. And Fabian Wagner here worked on it, met his wife on it, and he loved working with Zack. He loved working on this movie, and what he saw was an abomination to what they originally made. And that's not Joss Whedon's fault. I just want to make that abundantly clear. I'm not, there's enough to rag on Whedon about for other things. This was a job he had an impossible task to fix. Can you sit there and actually finish Justice League? He brought it over the finish line. It limped over, but he did it. And now the DCEU, for all intents and purposes, is kind of done. It's kind of gone. Right? If only Warner Brothers would have held off a little bit and realized that, yeah, they had a release date, but you push the release date back. You put it in an open time, and you don't run it against Thor Ragnarok, which I don't think anyone expected Thor Ragnarok to do as well as it did. And at the end of the day, you gross more than $650 million because you actually took the time to finish it and make it proper. They left money on the table by dictating everything they dictated with that final cut of Justice League. And by the end of it, by the time it came out, they didn't care. You could tell they didn't care. They knew they were going to lose money. They knew it wasn't very good. And in the end, you look at the human cost, the cinematographer crying when he saw it for the first time because his work was butchered by a company that doesn't know its head from its asshole when it comes to running a franchise. And given how the DCEU right now is in kind of tatters, it's never been more true to say that, right? Anyway, your thoughts, your opinions, let me know down below. And if you want to get in on the action, head over to facebook.com/groups/3buck theater and join up and talk to me there. Or if you want to yell at me for my opinion, if you don't like it, if you just want to have a conversation, head over to Hollywood After Dark, my podcast with call-ins. You can call into the show. We have a conversation here on the channel, Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day. And please, Warner Brothers, release the damn Snyder Cut. We all want it. You know we want it. Just give it to us.